I'll first introduce the panelists for today. We first have Akash, who graduated with a PhD in civil engineering in summer of 2021, and he currently works at the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. And our second panelist is Nikhil, and he completed his a master's in electrical and computer engineering from University of Houston in summer of 2018. He then joined Oak Ridge National Labs as a research associate and worked there for 3 years. And since fall of 2021, he is a PhD student in the Department of Civil Engineering at Purdue. And our third panelist is Pratik. He graduated with a PhD in industrial engineering in summer of 2021. He interned at Argonne National Labs during summers of 2019 and 2020. And he's currently a postdoctoral research associate at Texas A&M. Our fourth panelist is Tapaswi. He graduated with a PhD in materials engineering in summer of 2021, and he currently is a postdoctoral research associate at National Center for Nuclear Research in Poland. And we have Vasudevan. He graduated with a PhD in mechanical engineering in spring of 2020, and he's currently a postdoctoral research associate at Oak Ridge National Labs. First of all, thanks all our panelists who have agreed to come and share your knowledge with all of us. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be very useful for us. And you can go ahead and start sharing. We can start with Akash.
Thank you, Neha. Let me try to share my screen first. So are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
A very good morning, everyone. My name is Akash Ashapure, and currently I'm working as a junior research scientist or scientific programmer at Terrestrial Information Systems Lab at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. And about my educational background, I have a Doctorate of Philosophy with a geomatics concentration from Department of Civil Engineering at Purdue University. I started off my PhD as a graduate student at Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi, and my advisor transferred to Purdue, so I also tagged along. So my Purdue journey is only from 2019 to 2021. So talking about my job description at Goddard Space Flight Center. So my hiring was part of the latest Landsat 9 mission, which is a multispectral satellite, mainly subjected to aquatic remote sensing missions. And what I do there involves 70% of the research work and 30% of the website support. So 70% of the research work includes usual algorithm development, manuscript development, and proposal writing for aquatic remote sensing missions. And 30% of the work involves backend support for their repository, which is earthdata.nasa.gov, where you can download open source satellite data, and from the backend you can upload those satellite data sets. I also have an additional responsibility coming up as an adjunct faculty at University of Maryland College Park, where I'll have an opportunity to supervise research interns at the lab I work in at Goddard Space Flight Center. So mainly master's and PhD students from University of Maryland College Park. So I don't have too many slides prepared, so I will just go over them very briefly so that I can answer more questions. So I'll briefly talk about the hiring process. So the overall process took about 5 months. So to begin with, I didn't know that NASA can hire international people. I know that some of my friends are working as a postdoctoral students. But that is a project specific hiring where they most of the time are able to manage to make a case for national interest waiver. And that's how it works. But for most full-time applications, or I would say for almost all the full-time applications, they are not allowed to hire international people. So they have several back channels that they use, one of which is contract jobs. So there is a company called SSAI, or Science Systems and Application Inc., which is also kind of a non-profit organization. So basically a company which provides, which facilitates national labs and federal agencies like NASA, so that they can hire international students through their paycheck. So this is how it works. And so coming back to the hiring process again, so after the initial screening, the next step was telephonic interview, where I got a call from the Goddard Space Flight Center HR team, and basically they just asked me a couple of questions related to what made me interested applying for the job, and basically what I do here. So this is kind of just the initial part of the initial screening, where they just want to make sure that the applicant is a real person. It's not a fake application. So that's my take on the whole procedure for as far as telephonic interview is concerned. So next was the problem solving, where they gave me a real problem to solve, and I had about 2 weeks to work on the problem, and the expectation was to submit the code and report, and I did that. And then after 2 weeks, there was a technical interview. So technical interview was more of my technical background, or basically my research background, what I do as part of my PhD work, and how it will gel with the work that they are doing. And part of the technical interview was also how did I solve the problem which they gave 2 weeks ago. Um, Once the technical interview happened, the next step was research seminar, where I was supposed to present my research journey basically, and what are my career objectives, and what do I expect from Goddard Space Flight Center. So this interview happened in front of the whole team, and then they asked a couple of questions about my how my skill set would be useful with their current projects. So after that, they contacted the reference providers, and then interestingly, they did not accept the written um, recommendation letters. Rather, they had a 15 minutes appointment with each of the reference providers, a telephonic appointment, and that's how the whole reference procedure worked. And the last round was HR interview, where um, salary negotiation to do I have any concerns, or when will I be able to join, what is my current visa status, and just the formal procedure just before I was able to join. So it took about 5 months from start to the end of the interview procedure, or part of the hiring process. And it's been a month and a half that I'm working there. And that's about it about the hiring process. And I will stop here. I have a couple of more slides, such as what are the important websites to look at. So basically, we always look for very popular websites, and these are the websites which I know that are not very popular in the student community. So these are the three websites that kind of were very interesting in terms of searching a job. So there is zintellect.com, scholarshipdb.net, and higher ed jobs, which is more popular amongst the three. So I would highly encourage all the participants who are looking for jobs to research related jobs targeting national labs, federal agencies, and even private organizations as their career prospect. So please keep a regular eye on these websites. And I would stop here, and then maybe in the question answer session, if someone has more questions, I would be more than happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Akash. For all our audience, if you have any questions, please message me. The plan that we have is first, all the panelists will be presenting or expressing their experiences. Then we will have a Q&A session where they'll all be answering your individual questions. Thank you. So thanks again, Akash, for sharing with us your experience. And next we have Pratik.
Yeah, I'll share my screen. Just a second. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so I'll start with short introduction. Like already, I think Neha did that. But yeah, so my name is Pratik Jaswal, and I'm a postdoctoral research associate in the Department of Statistics at Texas A&M College Station currently. And I did my PhD this last summer. I just ended it in industrial engineering from Purdue University. And this is my email ID. If you have any question, you can reach out to me directly. And so yeah, so the purpose of this meeting is basically discuss how to get jobs in national labs. So yeah, so I interned at Argonne National Lab as a Givens associate in 2019 and 2020. So yeah, basically I'll talk about various opportunities at Argonne National Lab and basically my like what you can do while being at while this when you are just doing your studies and how you can think about your job prospects think of job prospects at these national labs through an internship. So yeah, so I feel that okay, if you want to like means get into any industry, so it would be it is a very good opportunity to just it is a very good thing to just do an internship there and develop connections with them. And yeah, so I think most of the national labs have these opportunities for graduate students, and one of them was basically through these internships. So yeah, and they have like good career websites as well, and there are a lot of opportunities. So we have like postdoctoral opportunities, and and there is like graduate programs. So this is like in particular where you should look for when you are like currently in college and looking for some internship opportunities. So you have this link over here which says graduate program, and in that actually you have two options. So one is graduate research and graduate internship. So I was not very familiar with graduate research part, but yeah, when I went there and I thought, yeah, this is also an interesting way to actually meet with people there and develop connections, and so that you can convert your internship with job opportunities. So I've seen a lot of students who used to be a research assistant or research aide there. They got job offers after completing their graduation. So I'll first talk about graduate internship, which actually I applied for. So graduate internships, there are only two options that they are like named associate positions. So one is like given associate, and another is WJ Cody associate. So these are mostly like in computing division. So Argonne is a big organization, and mostly these two internship opportunities are in the mathematics and computer science division and the associated divisions, where you are mainly interested in doing work in like high performance computing or some optimization or some theoretical work in statistics at the intersection of statistics and machine learning. So yeah, and usually for Givens associate, the process is it's very simple. Basically, they have a deadline. I think mid-January. That is, I think it's approaching. So yeah, it's still open. You guys can apply if you're looking for one. And in Givens associate, so you just need like recommendation letters, two or three recommendation letters, and just like a simple application. And then after that, if they select you, they'll call you for an interview. Just I think it's very simple, just one round of interview, and 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 I think they will mostly ask some technical question and what you're interested in, and they'll discuss some of their open projects which they are which they are interested in, And yeah, they'll try to find out like some match between your interest and their interest, and yeah, if everything goes well, then they'll offer you internship or this any of these positions. So yeah, so other than these two positions, I think that this is also an interesting way to, as I said, like research aid position. So you can actually complete part of your PhD, means part of your thesis, if your advisor agrees, definitely, and part of the thesis, and just contact them. So you can use their resources and take some take guidance from the experts, which who are working at Argonne National Lab, and uh, yeah, so they are basically, it's not like a summer internship part. You can actually spend more than a year as well. Like I know some of the students, they like spend like 3 years there completing their PhD, and at the end of their PhD, after their PhD like got over, they got a job there. So this is a nice way if you want to, if you are seeing yourself working in some national laboratory. And at least, yeah, this is, I know about Argonne National Laboratory, that they have such kind of program which encourage graduate students to participate in research and to actually complete their research at Argonne National Lab. So yeah, so these are the two opportunities which you can actually think about when you are like in graduate studies. And after graduate studies, basically you can directly apply for either postdoctoral positions. There are so many postdoctoral positions in various departments at Argonne National Lab, and out of them, I think there are 4 main fellowships as well available at Argonne National Lab. So these are the 4. I think one of them is like floated every twice a year. So yeah, you can apply to any of these. So I'm not sure about what are the processes involved here, but as I've not applied to these fellowships. But yeah, so these are some interesting opportunities which at Argonne National Lab. So I think, yeah, that would be all. And I'll be happy to take questions in question answer session. Thank you.
Thank you, Pratik. Next on, we have Vasudevan.
Hi, everyone. This is Vasudevan. So I was at Purdue from 2014 to 2020, doing my PhD in mechanical engineering. So I worked out of Berk Nanotechnology Center. My area of research is nanomaterials, and basically I do like optical and laser and electron spectroscopy of these new kinds of 2-dimensional materials. Currently, I'm working at Oak Ridge National Lab at the Center for Nanophase Material Sciences. Sorry, I don't have any slides like the previous speakers, but I'll just basically share my experience and the process I went through. So the first thing you should ask yourself after you're going to complete your PhD is, should I actually do a postdoc? Not a lot of people do postdocs, or they join academia because you have a lot of industrial opportunities. And typically in industry, you get paid more than you get paid in postdoc. And your career trajectory is quite different if you go to the industry. So you should ask yourself whether you want to do a postdoc or not. And if you want to do a postdoc, then you should decide if you want to go to a university to do a postdoc, or you want to go to a national lab. And the two places are quite different in my opinion. Though I haven't done a postdoc in a university, but I have a lot of friends who have done that. The main thing is that a national lab is actually somewhere in between an industry and university. So you don't have professors just like you have university, but you have boss like you have in a company. But the difference is that the boss is not really the one who will entirely dictate your life, because you get funding just like you get in a university, right? So you're funded from some grant, and you're given some flexibility and some independence to do what you want to do. So it's a very in between kind of position, and the people who should do or who should consider national labs is are those kind of people who want to keep their future flexible. So some of you may have decided that you just want to go and become a professor. So for them, doing a university postdoc would be just as good or maybe even better, because you have you have that experience continuously working with graduate students or writing proposals with a PI who is a professor. But if you want to keep your options open, maybe you want to go to industry after a few years, then you don't know exactly if you want to teach, you haven't yet developed the liking for teaching, then National Lab is definitely a good place to consider to give you some time, and you will definitely get a very good experience doing research with pretty much very seasoned scientists. So all these people have been working in these labs for like decades, and they have one of the, mostly they have like very good facilities in terms of experimental research. So that's something that you should definitely consider, and maybe even talk to more people in national labs and universities before you make a decision about a postdoc. One of the things to keep in mind is that there is a big distinction between a postdoctoral position in a national lab and a permanent position. A lot of people might want permanent positions in labs, so that they can stay on for a long time. But a postdoc position doesn't guarantee you a permanent position. And generally, the conversion rate for postdoc to a staff is quite low. Maybe like one in 3 postdocs are converted to a permanent staff. So you shouldn't come in with the idea that if I get in as a postdoc, you're going to be here forever. Most of the time, you'll have to look for opportunities again after 1 or 2 years. But at the same time, if you are in, let's say, industry, you'll probably be set for like a decade or something. So that's another thing you want to keep in mind, that this is not a permanent position, and you'll have to look for something most likely after a year or two. As far as the entire interview and hiring process, it's quite straightforward. All the positions that go out from national labs are put up on the website. So I will encourage you to look at Oak Ridge National Labs website or any other national lab that you're interested to go. You will find all the positions listed there, and there is no other like route. They generally don't. They may put it up on LinkedIn or something, but the best place to go is their website. And once you look at that, you apply online, you upload your resume and your research statement or whatever else they ask you to upload. And typically, just like in most jobs, you have interview number 1, which is a short one where you just give them a small presentation online, on Zoom or something, and they will get back to you. They will ask you some questions in that small session, then they'll get back to you after a few weeks if they like you and if they want to seriously consider you for the position, and you'll have an on-site interview. At least when I joined, it was on-site. Maybe now it's entirely online because of the COVID situation. But that second interview is the one where you will have a long one. You have a pretty much an entire day's interview where you present your research. Then you have meetings with different people in the lab, and the lab director, the HR, and these people will ask you questions, mostly technical questions about your research and so forth. So yeah, after that second interview, you'll pretty much be either given the job or not. So after you get the job, this entire process pretty much will take maybe 6 months from the day the position opens on their website to you getting the job. Probably takes 6 months. So before you graduate, if you're planning to graduate next semester, you should definitely start applying now or 6 months before you graduate. And as far as everyday life here is in the national lab, it's different again from the university, where you have a lot of flexibility in doing whatever you like. Typically, national labs, you are a bit you have the 9 to 6, 9 to 7 kind of job, and everyone is there in the lab. It's more strict in sense that the timings are all followed pretty well, and people are not encouraged to overwork. So work-life balance is better than in a university. Yeah, and I'm happy to take more questions as we go along. Jenny, you can go ahead with the next.
Yeah, thank you, Vasudevan. And next up, we have Tapasvi.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me all right first?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hello and namaste, everyone. As Neha was mentioning, I am Sri Tapasvi Nori, basically from Guntur, Andhra Pradesh in India. So I did my PhD from Purdue University during the time of 2016 to 2021. I graduated in May 2021. My background is in metallurgy and materials engineering. So I did my bachelor's and master's back in India in this department, and I continued with that during my PhD. And my research topic in PhD was based on microstructural evolution in advanced stainless steels for nuclear applications. Going to my hiring process, I'm currently working in National Center for Nuclear Research in Poland. There is a city called Otwock near Warsaw. So my journey is little different from others because I'm not in the US. So I think I will give you a different perspective regarding that. So basically, I was also looking for postdoctoral positions in US as well as in many other countries, including European countries, Australia, and even in India. If something comes up, I was open to take that position. So my suggestion and the way I was thinking during that time was to be open. So I was trying to look at various opportunities at various places just to make sure that I won't miss any of the the opportunity that may interest me. So the struggles were mostly common. I think all of us went through similar kind of struggles before getting into the national laboratory or any job position you deserve. Or so the struggle was mostly looking into various websites. One thing that I found very useful, especially with respect to national lab positions, was to email the advisors or the hiring managers to say. So this definitely worked in my favor, and I think there are two reasons why it worked, and I think it should work for everyone. Is one, the hiring manager will get to know your application, and he will watch out for you once he starts looking at all the applications. And second thing is that you will get your doubts cleared. So many people may have doubts like if you are international student, will you be getting recruited into national laboratories or not? So this is a generic question. So if you look into the job sites, let's say LinkedIn or any other places, or even for the even if you look into the career pages in the national laboratory websites, also they will give you the prerequisites and requirements, but sometimes they may not be very clear that they don't want international students or anything like that. Sometimes they will be clear, sometimes they won't be, and sometimes they will put out some weird requirements that you won't understand. So this happened in my case. They put out like I don't recall what they put out, but they put out something like they require some kind of clearance and so on, which I could not understand, and I have to Google and figure out things. So the best possible way to deal with all these things is, I think, just to send an email to the hiring manager. Then things will get cleared. So as I said, this worked in favor of me because even before I put out the application, I got my first interview at the National Center for Nuclear Research in Poland. But as I said, I was also applying in various universities and various national laboratories in the US. Also, for example, I applied in like Idaho National Laboratory, Brookhaven National Laboratory. Even Brookhaven National Laboratory, people showed some interest for interviews. But by then, I already got hired in Poland, so I had to like deny that offer for the interview. The hiring process was, as previous speakers mentioned, was very straightforward. I had my first initial screening interview, which was a telephonic one. In my case, it was weird. I had it even before I completed submitting the full application. One suggestion here is that to try to read all the requirements very well. Generally, national labs or any other universities, they ask the letters of recommendation after they are done with the, let's say, the initial, after you submit the application. If they find that person interesting, or sometimes even after the first screening, they will start asking for letters of recommendation. But some national laboratories, for example, in my case, when I was getting recruited into the facility at Poland, they asked for letters of recommendation along with the application. So that was little different from many other applications I have seen during the process of applying for various national laboratories. And that was one of the reasons why I have to make sure and ask the hiring manager through an email that will they recruit the international students or not, and can I fit into your let's say your research scheme for the postdoctoral position or not. So the hiring, going back to the hiring process after the initial screening, which was a telephonic. So the initial screening was a telephonic interview in which I presented like 15 to 20 minutes of my PhD work, and they had like a few questions. Only hiring manager was there during that interview, and then they got back to me for an elaborated interview, which was for like 45 to 50 minutes, in which all the research group leaders at the facility and even the director of the facility was there. And again, I presented a 20 to 25 minutes of my PhD research work. Then they had like a few questions which were mostly generic, but to some extent they were technical also. Most of the questions were about why did I choose their organization, and what are my research goals, what are my plans for the future, and things like that. There was an HR also, but she was mostly observing the proceedings. She did not have any questions. And then I got the offer within 2 weeks. Unlike others, I think my hiring process was very short. Maybe I was lucky, and I got it as a New Year's gift on December 30th. Sorry. After that, now I am working in this National Center for Nuclear Research for the past 1 month, and my duties were to look at the microstructural evolution and the evolution of the mechanical properties in ion irradiated alloys for nuclear applications. So with that, I'll stop my talk, and I'll be happy to answer any other questions if you have.
Thank you, Tapasvi. And we have our last panelist, Nikhil.
Hi, everyone. So let me try and share my screen. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah. So hello, everyone. So my experience and journey has been quite different from all the previous speakers, because I'm currently a PhD student and not a postdoc, and I spent 3 years at Oak Ridge National Lab after my master's. So anyone who's doing master's and is interested in national laboratory position, maybe you can ask me questions about that and how you want to pursue that. So maybe this will be helpful to you. So I did my master's from University of Houston in 2018 in electrical engineering. And while I didn't have any time to apply for internship because I started my master's thesis after completing 2 semesters, which became very hard. So I spent all my time working on my thesis, but my advisor was nice and he knew people at Oak Ridge National Lab. So I got an internship. And as other people already mentioned, internships help and their connections help. So my advisor recommended me for internship. I got interview without applying. They were interested. And I applied after getting an offer from them. So that was nice. So one of the reason I got that because my work during my thesis was on adversarial learning, domain adaptation, those kind of AI algorithms, which they wanted to build for the work they were doing at Oak Ridge. So they wanted a person for that. So during my internship at Oak Ridge National Lab, I was in geospatial AI group, developing AI algorithm for geospatial data. And during my internship, I had a really good mentor. And towards the end of internship, I talked about, are you interested? I just graduated. Do you have any position for full time? So they had, and they liked my work. So they hired me full time. So it was a good experience in terms of I didn't have to go through the process of applying and waiting. It was nice. But I've seen people who got postmaster's position who applied like a year before, and when they had position, they just contacted them. So just don't get disheartened if you don't have contacts. Apply if you think you have it's the position you want and your profile is aligning with that. Just apply, and if they have that position available, they'll contact you in time. And my work, so I'll talk more about the experience, and you can ask me questions later if you have any about the application and what kind of work. So I had a really good mentor. She's helpful. So anyone who wants to decide if they want to pursue PhD or not, national labs are going to be really helpful for that, and not the industry. Personally, I find academia boring. So it was good that I was in a national lab. I was working at cutting edge research using world's fastest computers. So it was nice. So, and also I was a part of Oak Ridge Postgraduate Student Association. We used to organize several seminars from different departments of the lab. So we get to meet Nobel laureates, people who are doing very, very cutting edge research in 3D printing, chemistry, biology. So you get to make a lot of connections, people from National Academy of Engineers, National Academy of Sciences. So that's the benefit you get when you are at National Lab, and Oak Ridge is the best. So just apply for that, I would say. And it's the best location for any national lab, in my opinion. Okay, and also I'll just talk about the mentorship you get over there, because yeah, I mean, your advisor is the best mentor you have, but if you get a good mentor, you get to meet so many people over there. Your profile, so materialistically, your profile is going to be much, much better if you are a national lab than in any university. And also, if you are master student and want to go for PhD, they'll help you out, because the way they work is they hire some people, as I think Pratik mentioned, or Vasudevan mentioned, they hire some people, but even for postdoc, it's not they hire everyone for full-time position. I mean, the permanent position, but they'll help you out in your journey ahead. So that's a very good thing. So just let these are my contact information. Shoot me an email if you have any question about anything. And currently I'm a PhD student in civil engineering, moved from electrical to civil because of my experience at Oak Ridge National Lab. Just shoot me an email if you have any questions.
Thank you, Nikhil. And thanks all the panelists for sharing your experiences with us. And we can go ahead with the Q&A session. So I'm getting a lot of questions, and in case any of you have anything else, you can send it to me and I can ask the panelists. And if you want to ask any of them specifically, please let me know so that I can ask them specifically. I'm actually getting a lot of questions about visa requirements and citizenship, but I think a couple of our panelists have already answered those questions. And if you think you still have some specific things that they haven't covered, please let me know. So the first question that I have is, So what are the channels for getting a green card? Like, is it the H-1B process more easier if you're in National Lab? And also related to immigration. Now we have Tapasri, who's in Europe right now, and all the other panelists have some experiences with the National Labs in the US. So having an opinion of both US and the Europe in this situation. So do you have any inputs for that?
I think I can go ahead first. So the H-1B visa National Labs gives you, it's non-profit H-1B, so they don't want to go through the lottery system. So once they apply, you'll get it for sure. So that's a good thing. But the thing with that is you'll not be able to move to industry from that visa. So you are constrained with non-profit, which basically means national labs, universities, that kind of situation. So if you want to be on a safer side, yeah, that's a good option. But if you're not sure about it, I wouldn't recommend it. And also with the green card, if you're at national lab, they hire you full time. They sponsor your H-1B visa. Don't worry about it. They'll apply. You are in a good environment. You'll get your green card in time. Obviously, there is a waiting list, and that depends on your publications and everything, the work you do. But you'll get your green card in time, because we are Indian, so we have to think about the waiting list as well.
So since Neha was mentioning about some perspective regarding Europe, is that so I'm not very familiar with it currently, but they have something called a temporary residence card, and then it upgrades to a permanent residence card, something like that. So for the initial, I think for first one year, you will be having a visa, a D-type visa. That's what they call it in Poland. I'm not sure if it is common across all the countries in Europe, but within 1 year, you are responsible to get the temporary residence card, which is, I think, very straightforward. And then you upgrade it to permanent residence card. I think I'm not very knowledgeable in this aspect of permanent residence cards, but the way I see it is that it's not very easy to get per se for the foreign nationals, because I see very few Indians in the national laboratories, or for that matter, any foreign employees in the national laboratories in Europe, because I have little acquaintance with one of the national labs in France also. It's called CEA. I got to meet them like 1 week ago. And there was one national laboratory in Finland as well, which is called VTT. So I kind of spoke with them a week ago, and kind of figured out that foreign nationals are kind of very much restricted in national laboratories in Europe, but sometimes they come up with some kind of teaming projects across the European Union. For example, in my case, this is a international teaming project for European Union between Poland, France, and Finland. So in those teaming projects, they tend to take internationals and foreign nationals, and they are happy to recruit them. But the process of eventually recruiting them for permanent positions will be a little tricky, I guess, at this point. But I'll save my comments for later when I have more knowledge on them. But this is my current perspective.
Thank you, Nikhil and Tapasvi.
I just want to add one point to what Nikhil was saying. So typically, if you join, like say, Oak Ridge National Lab, they will actually keep you on your OPT. So you'll get this 1-year OPT plus STEM extension for 2 years, right? So they will not apply an H-1B visa for you till you run out of your OPT. So it's in some sense it's actually good, because if you're on your OPT, you can just jump to an industrial job if you want to. Let's say you're here 2 years, you don't like the job, or your just contract is finished. And if you're on H-1B, the problem is if your contract is over, you can't just go to industry unless you have an industrial H-1B. But if you're still on your OPT, you can just join a company and they'll apply for H-1B for you. So pretty much that's the first step they will have you do is, keep your OPT and then apply for H-1B if you run out of your OPT.
Actually, that was the same thing I was going to say. So I also got to know the same, that they'll not apply for H-1B visa unless I run out of my OPT. Additionally, they highly encourage researchers to apply for green card on their own initially. And after 2 years, they become eligible that their employer can apply for green card for them directly. So one category that I think I would be interested in applying in next month or two would be EB1A. And also I would consider EB1, EB2, a national interest waiver category, where professors, researchers can apply for green card on their own. So if you are ready to wait for your OPT to get exhausted and then go through that H-1B process, that's also an option. But you can speak with the attorneys of, I'm pretty sure that would be the same thing for most national labs also. They'll have attorneys that you can contact and then get a consultation. And they, based on your research profile, you will most likely be able to apply for green card on your own before they initiate the process to speed up the whole thing.
Thank you. Do any of you have anything else to add to this question? Okay, so the next question is, what are the major differences in preference between a PhD and a master's student in terms of application? So Nikhil has already covered a little bit from the master's student perspective, but is there any specific preference that's given to a PhD student over a master's student?
Yeah, okay, so I think I'm in best position to answer that. So with the master's student, if I remember correctly, your immediate supervisor can make the final decision. So if your advisor knows that person who's going to be your supervisor, you're done. They'll hire you. Or if that person just likes you, like your work, the paper you publish, recent work or anything, they can hire you. But if you're a PhD, then it goes to director level, not the lab director, but division director level. So it's your immediate supervisor, your group, and then division. And then in your, there are several rounds of interviews, like everyone already mentioned that and they had to present their PhD thesis, which is like an hour interview where you have to present 40 minutes and they ask questions. It's not that with the masters. It's a simple, clear process. It might take some time because administrative process, paperwork and everything, but the interview, the number of people taking interviews are very, very less. So mostly dependent on immediate supervisor and the funding which it's coming from. So if someone in the lab is funding that project, then also he or she is going to be there, but mostly immediate supervisor. So it's pretty easy and straightforward for masters.
Thank you, Nikhil.
I didn't exactly follow the question 100%, but if I understand what you're trying to ask is there a difference between master student and PhD student for a position that you're trying to get? So for example, if you go to a company like whatever, like Intel or something, right, and they have positions which can be filled by master students or PhD students, I mean PhD graduates, they don't actually look at what your final degree is. So the engineer in a department can be master's or PhD, doesn't matter. But if you're a national lab, the kind of position they give you for a PhD and a master is completely different. You can't become essentially a staff scientist. So you will never get a scientist position if you don't have a PhD degree. And so you will either get a research associate position or a technical position, but you will not get a scientist position unless you're a PhD, which is different from an industry where you can still become a scientist even if you have a master's plus many years of experience, right?
I don't want to so I just have one more thing to add. So I don't think that's exactly right, because I've seen, so one of my, not direct supervisor, but the person I knew, she had a master, she did her master's from Georgia Tech. She was a postmaster's research associate for 3 years like me. And then she joined as a research scientist, research staff, and then scientist. And when I was about to leave in 6 or 7 years, she was there about 6, 7 years. She was a group lead. So
yeah, I think what you're saying is true for some departments, especially which are more engineering heavy.
Yeah, it varies, and
it varies by department.
It varies. So I would say just apply.
Yeah.
And also, as Vasudevan was, the difference in position the work you're going to do would be different, because if you are a postmaster's research associate, you're going to be dependent on your supervisor or mentor. In PhD, you'll have your separate, obviously you'll be funded by different projects. So you'll do those work, but there are expectations that you'll do much more like separate research, come up with something, write grants or something. But with postmaster research associate, that's not the expectation, at least for first 2-3 years.
All right. Thank you, Nikhil and Vasudevan. I think that, both of you have summarized on what the question was trying to ask. Oh, you have
Neha, I have something more to add to this. A little bit more. So I think, so I am not generalizing it, but in most cases, whenever they post a job for at least national laboratories, they specifically say whether they want a PhD or a master student. So it is very much there in the requirements. They have like 2 different advertisements. If they want a master, they will have a different advertisement. If they have a PhD, they have a different advertisement. So there is nothing like a competition between a master student and a PhD, and someone is preferred over the other. That kind of a scenario may not arise in most cases, as far as I understand. I think, yeah, that's all I want to add.
Sure. Thank you. Do Pratik or Akash have anything to add?
So I have seen many applications where they would say what is the desired qualification and what is the preferred qualification. So there are many applications where even if you don't have PhD, you will be eligible to apply, but they will specifically mention it that even though it's not the desired qualification, but preferred qualification would be a PhD. So that's also a lot of places that I have seen, but that's not necessary that that would happen every time.
Yeah, and I think for internships per se, I think yeah, means it's mostly you are currently a PhD student. I've not seen like any internship opportunities for like a master's student, but I think as like Nikhil said that if you have some contacts through your advisor, then definitely you can try. But there are some research position, definitely you can try that. So that is also through. I'm not sure whether that's like it's streamlined some like structured process, but I think if you have some contact through your advisor, that really helps. Even if you're a master's student.
Okay, thank you. And the next question we have is, what kind of profile do we build for the application in terms of the number of papers published or skills gained through research? And this is even for both like postdoc positions after PhD or after masters when you're applying for positions at national labs. Is the number of papers important or the skills gained during the research important?
I can go with this question. So the thing is, it's not like just about number of papers. I think the most important thing they look for is if your skill set match with what their requirement is. So if that is true, then yes, definitely you'll be considered. So I don't think the number of papers are very important. Like definitely not when you're not searching for when you're searching for internships, but for postdoc might be important, but it depends. It varies with field. Like if you're working like in very theoretical research, like applied like mathematics or statistics, then definitely you'll not be having that much paper. Like those who are working in maybe material science, correct me if I'm wrong, like material science, if you're working in like big groups, like people have a lot of paper. So yeah, it depends on what field you're working in.
Right, thank you. Do any of you have anything else to add to this?
Yeah, I would like to add something here. So skill sets versus number of papers. I think for the initial screening, they might look at, so they won't know you, right, for the initial screening. So they might look at your skill sets as well as the papers, and what weightage will be there on each aspect is up to the hiring person. Once they see you in the initial screening, then they will get to know you. They will have a look at your research. You can like, so if you are looking for a postdoc position, obviously you will be mentioning that I have done this research and this is already published or maybe published in future. So these kind of things you will mention in your presentation, and that's how they are going to know you better. Then again, it's up to the hiring manager, because it will depend on the position, and it will depend on the kind of requirements they have for that position. So for example, in my case, I did not have any of the papers published at that point when I got hired into this national laboratory, but my skill set was given more weightage when I did my presentation. But again, I should not be generalizing it, because before the initial screening, they might look for different aspects. But one suggestion here is that try to highlight whatever you are strong at. So let's say if publishing papers is your strength, go ahead and highlight that aspect. Or if your skill set is of greater strength, or it is more innovative, or it is the state of art, please go ahead and highlight that and try to look for those kind of positions only. Yeah, that's the suggestion.
I have to add, like, I have something to add here. So, like, most of the job applications have this cover letter. So it's like, and it's, I think that is the most important thing which an application has, like the job requirement. So people usually ignore it, but that's the place where you interact with the, where you can like convey your message to the hiring manager or those who are interested in hiring you. So that's very important. So like there, like you just look at the job description, whatever you have, and then I think there you articulate what you have as the skills in in terms of like, well, how you can add to that project, or how you can add, how can you use your skills to help them in achieving their goal through hiring you. So yeah, I think that is very important. Like whenever you do any application, like industry or national labs, like if you write a good cover letter, I think that that really make your case strong.
Yeah, I can just kind of give you an idea of how the three different situations that you might be trying for, university, national lab, and industry, kind of differ in regards to this question. So in a national lab, you will find that there is a posting and it specifically asks you that you need this skill set, and you need to know these kinds of things. And to prove that you know these things, you have to have maybe one publication or two publications, depending on how many you could get, in your PhD. And you have to have a recommendation from your advisor saying that, yes, he knows how to do these things. So that's what you'll find in a national lab. If you go to an industry, you'll find that it's more generic. Like they will not exactly ask you that you need to know exactly these things or that you need to have published so many things. And if you go for an interview, they're like, okay, somewhat about these things and you can learn, we'll train you in so many things. And if they like you, when you, the way you talk, the way you explain things, the way you understand a problem, right, they will just take you because they're not exactly looking for the skill, and they're going to train you and change your entire, way of looking at the problem they want you to solve. Whereas in university, you'll find that it's entirely different. You may not even have a job posting. You can just write to a professor and say, hey, I like you as a researcher, I want to work with you. Do you have any position open? And he'll be like, okay, next year I have some funding coming. You can, let's talk about it. And he'll be just giving you some open-ended problem or something which you just think about and say, okay, I want to work with. So again, the national lab will be somewhere very much in between. It's not like entirely open-ended. It's not going to be like a company, but it's going to be something very specific, but a little bit forgiving in terms of, papers, especially. If you have less papers, it's still okay, as long as you know what to do. So.
All right, thank you. The next question we have is, it's actually two questions. The first one is, are referrals accepted in national labs? And did networking help you land in your position? And if yes, how?
So maybe I can go ahead. Like, okay, so I did my first internship through like applying, and my second internship was through networking. So yeah, so it definitely helps. And I actually applied for job too, but I think the job which I applied to due to this COVID issues, that funding got canceled. So yeah, so definitely networking helps. So sometimes it happens that they will create a job for you if they really like you. So that may also happen. So that's very important. Like you develop network connections, and if they like you, they will push for you.
Yeah, having a referral, I mean, let's say your professor knows the people in the national lab, is always helpful, because they kind of, the whole national lab system runs in a little bit like a trust. People have to trust each other, and they're small organizations usually, right? They're not like companies which will just hire and fire like thousands of people and they just keep moving, right? They are like small group, and so they want to know whether you're trustworthy, whether you're, you have that mindset that you can gel in the group and in the because you need to have a particular kind of attitude to work in national lab, where you're not too strict, but you're not like too like free, where you're just doing whatever you want. You have to be a bit disciplined, but also be a bit independent when it comes to doing work. So that's what they want to see. And if your advisor calls them directly and says, hey, this guy is exactly who you're looking for, then definitely your chances will increase. Especially for me, my advisor knows this group. I mean, nobody from my group ever came to this position before, so I'm the first person from my group who actually joined. So it doesn't mean that just because if your professor knows somebody, you'll get the job, but it definitely helps if they know, right? Yeah, and generally it won't be like you will just get the position if they know you. They'll definitely open a position and they'll interview a lot of candidates, and if somebody is better than you, then they'll go with that candidate. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll just give my 2 cents on it as well. So with me, as I've already mentioned, my advisor knew my would-be supervisor there, and they knew because when my supervisor was doing PhD at Purdue, they had publications together, so that helped. And she was a postdoc, and then as she became research scientist, she could hire, and then she hired interns over there. And after that, when I was doing my postmaster's research associateship over at Oak Ridge National Lab, in order to get a PhD position, like in order to get admit as a PhD at Purdue, my current advisor at Purdue and my supervisor at Oak Ridge, they had overlapping period at Purdue as well. So he just called her, like, is he a good student? Is he going to be a good student? Is he good enough? So she said yes. So networking helps, referral helps. Try to build that, but in order to do that, you cannot just go and you have to build a relationship. It takes time. So just be patient with that. Know people, do good work. That will help you.
Thank you. Do any of you have anything else to add to this? Okay. The next one is how is the work culture in the National Lab from both if you're in a fellowship program or if you're doing a postdoc or after masters, and in terms of what are the expectations? So are you expected to publish a lot and bring funding in, and or what are the other deliverables when you're working in a lab?
I can go for that. The work-life balance in a national lab is typically quite good. Like you won't see anyone working in the office. At least because I can say that because I'm from experimental group and people actually come to work. I don't know about people who are working from home. They might be working on the weekends, but I'm not sure. But as far as like I'm concerned, since I'm experimental, I see my group come to work every day, go to work, and nobody comes on the weekends. People usually work somewhere from 8:30 to maybe 5, 6, 7, depending on how much work you have. And your vacation time, for example, is completely in your hands. So if you're in grad school, you have to ask your professor, can I go? And how long can I go for? And your advisor may be like, okay, come back soon, we need to finish this stuff. Or he may give you work on the weekends, but that definitely won't happen in the national lab. You're free to take vacation time that you're allotted whenever you want to take it. So it's more like a little bit like an industry where you have an HR who will manage your your pay and things like that. So there won't be a one-to-one like with your advisor kind of thing. It's entirely separated. So your personal life and your work life will be separated, and you'll have that kind of flexibility. So I think apart from that, the expectation in terms of publications is definitely there. Like they've hired you so that you publish and you produce results, because again, just like a university, they get money from the government and they have to show that the money that they're getting is being used for something. So publications is the only way that you can show you're doing some work. But it won't be extremely high pressure or anything like that. You probably, if you are doing a 2 years postdoc, you might publish probably 1 or 2 first author papers, and you'll be in a bunch of co-authors, maybe 4 co-author papers. And that's quite doable since you already have experience publishing 1 or 2 papers in your PhD, and you have the access to a lot of facilities in the national lab. So, if you just show up to work every day, you do your work sincerely, you can get a paper or 2 for sure. And your supervisors, your colleagues will help you. You'll be talking to them regularly, maybe even every day, and you'll have meetings. So you'll always be on track, making progress.
I just would like to add something to what Vasudevan has told. So regarding the deliverables, they will be slightly different from what we have seen in PhD. Like you are now more of a scientist than a student now, so they expect you to like write proposals and get grants also, along with writing papers. So that way it is slightly your upgraded version of a PhD life will be there in your postdoc life in terms of deliverables. As Vasudevan mentioned, there won't be any pressure or stress in that matter. But yes, you should be one notch up regarding the deliverables. Yeah, that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you. The next question is, what would be the major cons of applying to or working in national labs in terms of pay scale? And if any other factors have to be considered? And would this pay scale vary if you're a fresher or if you're experienced? I see a lot of smiles.
I'll go ahead first because I think PhDs get paid more than masters for sure in national labs. So they can go later. So it was shocking to me because I'm not going to mention the numbers, but yeah, I was getting paid decent salary after as a postmaster's research associate. But if you are going to compare with your friends at Google, Amazon, it's not going to be helpful for you. You're going to be depressed, but you'll have much more work-life balance, as everybody already mentioned. You can go to work at 8, leave at 5, 40 hours a week. You'll be fine. It's not that you are staying there all the time. Your supervisors, mentors are helpful. So it's a very different kind of environment. Expectations are very different. And so that's one of the things. And I've seen people coming from academia, like working in academia 5, 7, 10 years, working in Amazon, Google, coming back to lab because they just got tired of working there. For some people, academia was too boring, but they wanted to work in like cutting edge, so they came back. And for people who worked at Google, Amazon, and others, they just were tired. They were fed up with the with the long working hours, so they came back. So it's a more work-life balance. But yeah, the increment is also less. It's like a federal thing, like 3%, 3 to 5%. That's all the increment you get, at least for first 3 years. And so it's a decent salary. It's a good salary, but don't compare it with with the top-notch industry.
And the important thing you have to consider with national lab salary is that it's quite normalized across all the national labs. So if you're working in, let's say, Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, which is in California, and you still get paid the same salary that you get paid in, let's say, Knoxville, Tennessee, where the state tax is 0 versus state tax is like 20% or something in California. So your life is going to be really more difficult in Berkeley compared to some other place, right? But typically, I know friends here who were in Lawrence Berkeley or Lawrence Livermore, and they just felt that the salary was too low, though it was the same salary that they get here, because it's a national kind of a rule. So, but if you are in the right location, maybe Argonne or Oak Ridge, these places are comparatively lesser cost of living as California or New York or somewhere. So that is fine, and yeah, for the work-life balance you get, I think getting a little lesser salary than a company is worth it if you want that peace of mind.
Do you have anything to add, Akash?
So most of the time, there's just one thing I completely agree with everyone who just mentioned about their experiences. But most of the time, we think that the salaries are not negotiable, but they are to some extent. So you can negotiate based on your qualifications and your experience, and they might consider it if they like you.
Okay. And other than salaries, what would you say based on your experience or based on your friends who are in industries would be the major cons of considering working in a national lab, if there's any?
So one thing is for sure, like work-life balance was really a prime criteria for me, and of course I wanted a specific profile, so it was kind of a best matching job for me, so I went ahead with that. So you will find a lot of industry jobs really high paying compared to what you would uh, see in a federal agency or any national lab. But if it's very subjective actually, what your life goals are, what kind of profile and what kind of work-life balance you seek in long term. So based on that, you are the best judge of your own career.
Yeah, to just add a little bit, there's definitely a trade-off here. If you're looking for the pay, don't go for national labs. Very straightforward. If you compare it with industries, you're not going to get paid, but the trade-off, the payment is the trade-off. But you get to work as you like, and you get to work with the project you like. You get to continue with your research work, and these are the cons if you want. These are the pros. Sorry, these are the pros if you want to know about the national lab uh, national lab work. But if you compare with industry, I know my friends who joined industries and they left the company like in 1 year or 2 years, even though they were getting highly paid, just because of this reason that they are not getting what they want to work with. So in most of the industrial jobs are like they don't hire you because of your expertise in your research area, but they hire you because how to work with them, or if you are like a very good team player. They look for very generic criteria, not specific to your research area. So you won't be working on the topic you want to work with in industries. So yeah. So definitely, if you, so as Akash was mentioning, it varies from person to person. It's completely up to you whether you want to continue the research profile, or if you are looking for a high paying job but you won't be able to continue research profile.
Thank you. So, Tapasvi, the situation in Europe is the same as what it is here in terms of the pay scale in labs, is it?
Yes, but yeah, so as I mentioned previously, national labs in European Union, they don't uh, like recruit many postdocs generally, but yeah, in some specific teaming projects, they do recruit people. With respect to, so there is nothing like a generalized pay scale that I know of in European Union, but one thing I can definitely say is they have something called seniority payment. So if you are like, I think this was pertaining to one of the previous questioner, he was asking about uh, whether they add more payment with seniority. Yes, they do add. I think in the place I'm working in, they add like 3% of the base salary each year, depending on your seniority. Um, with respect to whether the salary is normalized across all the organizations or not, I'm not sure, because I was trying to apply it different organizations in Europe. They have different pay scales. Definitely not across Europe, but within a country, maybe they have something normalized. But it definitely varies from country to country. Yeah, that's all I can say.
Thank you. And the next one is in terms of some departments like nuclear engineering or aerospace engineering, there's always a factor of citizenship, which it's very difficult to get even into industry jobs. So in national lab, like maybe Tapasvi and Akash, like Akash, you're in NASA and Tapasvi, you're in nuclear lab. So do you think it's specific to the project that you're working on? And even if you're not a citizen, you're considered, or is there any other factors?
So maybe I would give a little more perspective beyond the question. So back then when I was applying for postdoc positions and maybe full-time jobs in federal agencies, many applications that I encountered had this thing very specifically mentioned, that only for citizens and permanent residents. But I don't know how it started, but like I sent an email to one of the PIs in Berkeley National Lab, mentioning that I'm really interested in this position. And if you really see a scope for national interest waiver, and if there is a possibility, if they like one candidate and if they think like they can make an amendment in their application process, they will definitely do it. They might find some back channels like NASA did for me, or they might have a postdoc position under a project which would be waived of the national interest clause. So if you think that this application might not, this job profile might not need to deal with data like military, confidential data, or navigation data, or any data that might have a conflict of interest based on your citizenship status, they might not be able to do it. But if there is something, if there is a job profile which deals with a lot of open source data which is publicly available anyways, so they will definitely make an amendment like they did for me. So this is how I got like 3 different job offers, 2 from national labs and 1 from NASA, based on my special request to the hiring agencies, writing them email back and forth. Communication happened, and then this is how I got those opportunities. So yeah, I would say if you are really interested in some profile, even if you think that the job profile suggests that they are not, they are specifically looking for permanent residents and citizens, just go ahead and shoot an email, because you have literally nothing to lose here. So I would highly encourage students to look for these opportunities, even if it says they are not open for international students. So there might be many applications where there is opposite examples also, where the application didn't mention that they are not entertaining international students, and I applied, and then I get an email that this application is only for permanent residents and citizens. Ironically, I applied to jobs where it was only open for citizens and permanent residents, and I got those. So there are examples of both. So I would just say, just shoot, just apply for all kinds of jobs. If you think you're interested in that profile, just apply.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with Akash. The best way is to write emails to them and check and verify always. And I think going back to the question, I think it depends on the sensitivity of the project. So within nuclear in engineering, or let's say within aerospace engineering also, there are some areas which are like very sensitive to for the national interest. And there are some areas in which you can still work in which they don't require citizenships. So let's say in case of nuclear materials, since I come with a background of nuclear materials, not everyone works with, let's say, nuclear fuels, or not everyone works directly in touch with nuclear reactor and any other processes related to that. There are some people who are like outside, they work outside the nuclear reactors, mostly dealing with testing materials whether they are suitable for per se to use them in future reactors or not. So they don't require those requirements for nationality. So I think it depends on the sensitivity of the project, and it also depends on the origin of the project. Let's say the the idea behind the project. Sometimes there's they build up a project, or put together a project in which they want to recruit international students because they don't want any nationality issues coming in there, because they don't need to, because the nature of the project or the origin of the project itself does not require it, even though you are in those sensitive areas of nuclear engineering or aerospace engineering. So definitely follow what Akash has told. It worked for me as well. And sometimes some national labs they float an advertisement asking for only US nationals initially, but after after some months they will figure out that there is no one who is eligible, or who is applying for this post. Then they will start to open for other nationalities also. So just look out and watch out for the advertisements again and again. And as Akash mentioned, just verify with them always. It will help.
Yeah, just always shoot them an email, because just an email, you might not know that an email can get you a job. So yes, for sure. And one thing I would like to mention that so it is very important in the later part of your PhD to not just rely on your existing network or the relationship you maintain with your peers and with your professors, or otherwise also, but it is also important to build your own network. So I would assume by the second or third year of your PhD, most of us already know, because we are doing literature review, who are the prime people working in this field which we are interested in. And we are doing literature review. We are also starting to look for jobs. We are attending conferences. Well, thanks to COVID, most people not anymore. But we also attend conferences where we meet people. So try to build your own network, not just to rely on the existing network of people that we have. So maybe shooting people an email when you meet them in conference, following up after that, or just send a random email that if you have any postdoc positions or any work that we can collaborate on, that would definitely go a long way.
Thank you, Tapasvi and Akash. That was very useful information for a lot of the questions that were asked. And the next one is there any kind of tenure position for postdocs in labs? Is it similar to what universities have in terms of job security?
So basically, when you join as a postdoc, it's a contract position. So it's a 2-year contract typically, or it might even be 1 year. and then you get an extension if your performance is good. But at the end of 2 or 3 years, it's either you get a permanent staff position, which is, you can call that as a tenured position, but essentially it's a permanent staff position, or you have to just move on and find another job. So it's not exactly like a university. Yeah.
Do any of you have anything else to add to that? Okay. The next one is, I think a couple of you have covered this previously, but how related were your PhD research and the work that you were hired to do? Did you have a freedom to choose the project, or it is completely dependent only on the kind of job opening that is available? And in terms of skills, did you have to, are the skills that you did in PhD sufficient, or did you have to gain some additional experience?
So I can maybe start on that. So most of the time as a PhD student, you don't have the luxury to have many parallel things going on with your PhD research as to, okay, this particular job profile I'm interested in, but it requires a different kind of skill set. So let me just do something in parallel so that I can be a good fit for that position. That is possible, but I don't think that is that is the case we can generalize. So most of the time you will end up getting a job which gels really well with the skill set that you are developing as part of your PhD program. So if that happens, probably the best thing. If you are interested in, if you are also interested in your PhD work, then and if you get a matching profile, that would be the best thing. Or I can testify that that happened to me. And it also helps you get the position in the sense that they will be able to make a strong case if they have to make any exceptions to get you in. Maybe once you are in the system, work there for a couple of years, probably then you will have more degree of freedom as to what different work that I can take on, or changing the profile or changing the research altogether. Probably that would be the question of future. But is your strong profile matching with the floating advertisement that you apply to and eventually get a job? Is solely based on your current research work and your PhD profile overall. There can be exceptions also for sure, but they will go to extraordinary length if they really like you in that project on board, and that would potentially be based on your current research work and what you're working on right now.
Yeah, to add to that, if you look at from the perspective of a recruiter, so if somebody floats an advertisement and they give like requirements for the job profile, most cases even the recruiter will not be able to find all all the boxes checked for the people who are applying for the job. So what a recruiter will look at is at least 50-60%. I'm again there may be some specific cases in which they have 100% matching, but in most cases even the recruiter finds only 50-60% match with the applicants. So now if I have to look at it from the applicant's perspective, it is good that I am getting an opportunity to explore more new areas of research, right? Otherwise, there is no point you do postdoc if you want to just do whatever you want to, whatever you did in your PhD. So it will add that growth prospect to your profile as well. So I think it is always good to explore like new areas, but your recruitment will be mostly based on your skills that you developed in your PhD. But as I said, the recruiter will not be able to find an ideal candidate for any position in most cases in general. And I would what the way I see it is I will use this as an opportunity to kind of explore areas and slightly expand your wings, and that's how you will be able to grow as a researcher and scientist.
Do you have anything to add, Nikhil, based on your experience as a master's student in the lab?
Yeah, I can add, but I think it was mostly targeted for PhD. So, but yeah, I can just share my experience of as a postmaster research associate. I was very closely working with my direct supervisor, and the work was very much related to the work I did at University of Houston for my thesis. So actually, we just recently published a paper, and so it's a collaborated work from Houston and Oak Ridge. So it was a direct um, it was more like further steps into the algorithms I was making. So very directly related to the work I was doing. But I've seen what I know, at least for Oak Ridge, is for postdocs, they give you some free time and free money, not free money, but free time, and they pay you and they encourage you to do your thing. Like I think it's a couple of hours. Vasudevan can, I mean, explain about that. But I think they have something like that, which is not for postmasters. This is for postdocs. So they encourage you in that terms. But obviously, I've seen postdocs work because their fundings are dependent on projects. So they might have funding from 4 projects. So they'll be juggling their time in 4 projects, but they still have some time of their own to focus on few things. And they help you with career development, workshops, all those things. So you can use those hours which they pay you for and for those kind of developments.
Yeah. Thank you. And this is the last question, and it's kind of specific. So we have a couple of visiting doctoral students at Purdue, and the question is the process of application different for them based on their visa status, because they normally have a 2-year visa. And do any of you know anyone who had a similar situation where they could still apply for a postdoc in the national labs, even though they were just a visiting scholar here?
Yeah, so I don't know anyone who worked here and then moved to any lab, but I know people who did their PhD in India and came on J1 as a postdoc here at labs, and then they became research scientists in 3 years. So that's possible, but I've heard from people that it's easy to move. It's just if they are ready to hire you, then they just give you J1 and you just transfer your J1 from the university to that. So I don't think it's any different from if they are applying for H1B nonprofit, or if they are helping you with their OPT. It's not very different. If you're good for the job, it's not going to make much more difference.
I think there is one more hidden complexity in this, is that you need to get the waiver from India as well, right? If you are on a J1 visa, it adds to that you need to get that waiver from India, because otherwise you have to go back, after that stipulated period. I think it is 2 years, right? On top of it, I think one important route I saw people doing is that apart from getting the waiver from India, is that they once they are like a visiting doctoral student in the university, they know their professor, so they try to set up an offer from their professor to continue as a postdoctoral scientist. Once they get their J1 waiver from India, they'll continue as a postdoctoral fellow in their university, maybe then jump to, let's say, a national lab later on. Or they can always try to do that, set up a collaborative project with the national labs with the help of their professor. I'm just thinking on the fly that you can set up a project with the help of your professor and a national laboratory, and then slowly move on to the national lab after you get your J1 waiver from India. I think these are my 2 suggestions, I would say.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much, all of you again, for your time. And the session was indeed very helpful. And if any of the audience have any questions later on that you want to specifically send to any of our speakers, you can send it to any of the co-hosts of this meeting. And Arjun and Sagar have posted the RSVP links for our next events through Bharatiyam. We are planning to have similar panel sessions where we bring people from different labs or different parts of the industry where they would discuss their experiences, and you can come and ask them any questions that you have. So you can contact any of us for more information. Yeah, and I think that's it. We've answered all of the questions that we have received.
Hold on for a minute. I mean,
Yeah.
some people have messaged like asking for your direct contact. So it would be great if you can just drop all the panelists, if you can please drop your email ID, so the best way to reach you.
Okay.
So if you can do that, I think, yeah, that would be great. So people who wanted like contacts of the panelists, like please take a note at the chat. So like our panelists are putting in the email ID, so that if you have any specific questions or like if you want to talk to them about separate issues, you can just directly reach out to them. Tapasri, do you want to type it for me? I mean, I think you are on phone. Tapasri?
Yeah, I sent it.
Yeah.
I sent it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
sent it
Okay. I think you were struggling because I saw you on phone.
Yeah, but yeah, I managed to do that.
Yeah, please. Thanks.
So there's one more thing that I really want to add in. So just do a best job in preparing your application, and we really need good recommendation letters from professors or whoever your superiors are. So just make sure that they submit their recommendation letters on time, because I have had this experience where my applications were incomplete, and I could not uh, finish my applications just because professors were not able to submit my recommendation letters on time. So I think my advisor later on recommended that if you need 3 recommendations for a profile, maybe, or for a job application, contact 5 or 6 professors and then try to do mix and match. Well, your thesis advisor cannot get away with it. He has to be in all the applications, but other professors try to do mix and match so that you can make sure that you're not bothering people too much, because that was one of the concerns that my recommendation letter providers had mentioned in the past, that you are applying many applications. We didn't know we didn't know that we have to write so many letters. So that could also be a problem. So just make sure that none of your applications remain incomplete because your recommendation letters were not through. I don't know if anyone has something to add to that about the application process specifically. What problems were encountered, and what are the suggestions for new applicants?
Okay. I hope all of you had your questions answered. And in case there's anything that you feel that you have to ask, then again, the panelists have given their email IDs in the chat, or you can contact us if you have any other questions, and we can direct it to the specific people. Thank you everyone for attending. And the RSVP links for our next events are in the chat box. Yeah, if you think anything can be useful for you, you can join the next session that we have. Thank you.